and welcome. Today we're taking a closer look at the Cobra Strike Assassin, using it as a bossing build. We'll begin by doing a little bit of Uber Tristram and the mini Ubers that lead up to it, the key bosses, Uber Duriel, Izual, and Lilith, or Uber and Duriel. But first, a sneak peek as we kill all three of the Uber Tristram bosses using only about 4 rejuvenation potions, most of those right here on Diablo. The full run will be shown at the end of the video if you want to check it out. We'll showcase 2 variants, both will mainhand Bartuks, one will offhand Headhunter's Glory as seen here, and another will offhand a Plague Claw. Let's start with the pre-buff gear. We want a couple of Shadow Killers with poison facets in them. We only care about the +5, we do not care about the minus. You want a better rolled Bramble than I have, or a +1 Nat's Chest with +5 facets in that will work as well. We do have the entire inventory of the +4% lifers. This will help give us the life we need to survive, but also double dips that venom damage and increases our Cobra Strike damage as well. My venom right now is at level 41 on pre-buff, but that can go up a little bit more. Only a couple of pieces of gear need to change from our standard Whirlwind Venom build. We are using Bartuks here, which give us 4 to our Cobra Strike, as well as having 3 facets. We do want to have a high enhanced damage on them because that helps with our Leech and our Sustain. These are just great claws that give strength, dexterity, faster hit recovery. Really helpful. I am wearing 320 gloves in this, as that helps us hit some higher attack speed breakpoints and gives us more Cobra Strike damage afterwards. Otherwise, our gear is pretty much the same. The only other big change here is a metal grid as an amulet, as we are hitting some high level targets and we don't want to have to rely on our merc, who might die at some point during the fight. So getting a little bit more attack rating is going to be really helpful to make sure we can hit Baal, Diablo, and Mephisto as often as possible. The stat points for this build are fairly simple. We want 20 points in Cobra Strike, obviously 20 points in its synergy Venom, which we're also going to pre-buff, so that's very helpful. After that, we want 20 points in Claw Mastery, 1 point in Blade Shield and its prerequisites, same with Dragon Flight. And then we can put the rest into Claw Block, Fade, Burst of Speed, Shadow Master, Shadow Warrior, whatever you think is going to be most helpful for you. I dumped 20 into Shadow Master as a little bit of a tank, and then put the rest into Fade. For our Merc, we are running Emilio with a Pride. He's also 95% curse immune. I have not gotten him a string of ears yet that has 10% curse reduction, because I'm a bad parent. And now we're good to go. Let's dive in. If you have never done the mini Ubers before, you can get to them by obtaining 3 different keys. Those keys can drop from certain bosses in the regular Lord of Destruction content, but can also drop from map creatures, these shadows that are spawned from a new event. They look kind of like Heartless from Kingdom Hearts, and they have a chance to drop all the keys. That is a much faster and much more significant way of getting them, so I highly recommend that. Once you have 3 of each, you can spawn the 3 bosses by putting 1 of each into the key. It will open a portal. When you have all 3 portals, you can go kill Izual, Duriel, and Lilith. Izual and Duriel are pretty much pushovers. I don't even think we used a single potion on this fight against Duriel, maybe 1. But Lilith is a little bit more tricky. She does hit pretty hard, and for us in particular, she seems to have very high poison resist. So as we compare 2 different setups, one using a Headhunter's Glory, which gives us amplified damage, and another setup using a Plague offhand, we can see the difference between lower resist and amplified damage. I recommend this setup where we have amplified damage, as it gives us a bit more leech, more sustain, and makes it so we're not using as many potions as we're killing leechable mobs. That will change when we do Diablo Clone and Rathma, who we cannot leech from anyways. And here is our second setup where we're using a Plague. This will be our offhand, even though it's in the main hand slot. We'll take a look at that in a second, but that gives us a lower resist proc plus 5 points in Cobra Strike to boost our poison damage. Other than that, our gear is exactly the same as the previous build. Nothing else changes, but there is one mechanical difference in the way that this setup works. We actually need to weapon speed bug or IAS glitch our weapons. What that means is we want to put our slow weapon in the left weapon slot above the gloves and our fast weapon, the Bartuks, in the right weapon slot above the boots. We then want to pick up our slow weapon and equip it again, making our Bartuks the primary. This gives us a huge attack speed boost without having to equip attack speed gear. The pros to using Plague in this way is that we have a faster attack speed, allowing us to deal more poison damage on a more frequent basis, as well as get that second proc of Cobra Strike and Leech more frequently. We also get that lower resist proc, which helps deal additional damage. The negative is that we do not have amp damage, which actually provides a lot of Leech itself. We also don't have a shield and are relying on Claw Block, which is not nearly as good this season as it has been in previous seasons, as it has a 4-frame cooldown after blocking any ability, whether that's an attack, a spell, whatever. It can still block spells and effects, but if it blocks something, it cannot block another effect for 4 frame. That said, in testing, both are basically the same speed-wise. There might be a little bit more consistency with your Leech at a lower level using a Plague, but you have a higher amount of Leech every time it procs using the Headhunter's Glory. As you can see, Lilith doesn't seem to really care all that much about the lower resist proc. She was taking a ton more damage when we had that amp damage proc up from the Headhunter's Glory, so I would recommend just running Headhunter's Glory when you're killing the mini Ubers. I think it only took me a couple extra potions, but it did take about 15 to 20 more seconds, and Emilio died, which is always sad. But one way or another, once you get 3 organs, it doesn't matter which ones, they are 100% drop rate now. You can put 3 of them into the cube along with a key, and it will create a Pandemonium Talisman, allowing you to come to Uber Tristram. So here we've run through our pre-buff setup. Nobody's going to attack you at this time, so you're pretty safe to just do that. It's not a big deal. This actually takes about a quarter of the fight. The next quarter of the fight is splitting up the bosses. You don't want to fight them all at the same time, as Mephisto has a Conviction Aura and Bale has a lower resist curse, which will stack together. I am curse immune, so I don't have to worry about Bale's, but if you aren't curse immune, it can be really problematic. Once we split them up, they die really fast. Mephisto is going to take only about 10 to 15 seconds for us to drop, and we are running 75 max resist all across the board, so we don't have any extra resist to deal with his conviction and things along that nature. We are overcapped because we're running Fade for this fight, so that helps, but other than that, they're not bad once you split them up. They're, in many cases, much easier to kill than even Lilith is. Lilith, in my opinion, is harder than any of these 3 that we're going to face in Uber Tristram. I always recommend doing Mephisto first, as he will chase you the furthest distance and can just show up randomly as you're killing someone else. The next is whichever one is going to decide to split a little bit further than the other. In this case, we got Bale next, which is fine. If Bale doesn't do his little blue wave push, he is a complete pushover even if he spawns a second ad. You'll notice that the amount of time it takes to just get back from that push is about as long as it takes for Bale to die, even with his clone up. You could kill Diablo second or last. In this case, we're getting him last. He'll do the most damage out of the 3 of them because I'm too lazy to move out of his breath, which he just spams over and over again. But you can just pot through it, so don't even really worry about it. Just pop a couple of Rejuvs and he'll be dead in about 5 seconds. Congratulations, you got yourself a torch and a standard of heroes. Next, we'll run it again with the Headhunter's Glory setup, like we used at the very beginning. This is one of those feel things where you can sort of feel the difference for yourself to decide which one you would prefer. I think they work equally as well, but I do tend to just prefer the Headhunter's Glory a little bit more. It might be the shield block that's helping out. It could be the increased sustain on a more regular basis from the Headhunter's Glory proc, giving that amp damage, but it just felt like bosses died a little bit faster and it was a little bit easier to sustain once we got on them. We can see again that it takes just a little bit of time to separate them, but since we don't get anything if we die, I highly recommend taking the extra couple of 20 to 30 seconds to actually pull them apart, rather than just YOLOing your way in and dying and losing those keys that it took you 20 maps to get. Here we'll see Diablo again doing the most damage to us as I just dive in on him behind this rock wall because I get bored waiting for him to actually come over. Even still, it takes about 2 or 3 rejuvenation potions, then he dies, as that third hit from Cobra Strike really does a big chunk, about a third of his life every time it hits. This Bale was friendly, didn't make a split, didn't do his blue wave push, just kind of sat in the corner and got completely nuked. And there you have it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below.